Ready?
Ready as I'll ever be, John.
Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. I'm on the road with the D to the C to the D-O-double-G. Dan's Timeless Classics.
Dan's Timeless Classics, eh?
What are we talking about today, Dan?
Well, it's got to be something to do with cars, isn't it?
Yeah.
I reckon, Porsche. What do you reckon, 996?
Sounds good.
We're not going to see one, though.
We're not going to see one, but 5 reasons or things you should check out, I haven't thought of the title yet, before you buy a Porsche 911 996. And Dan is the resident expert, really. I've learned a few things
Bank
from him.
balance.
Yeah, check your bank balance.
Make sure you've got enough to buy it, rebuild it, and buy it over 3 times.
Yeah, we'll use that, isn't it? So Dan, over to you. What's number 5? We'll count down to the most important one first, and then we'll go from the peripheral ones.
I think most important one first, you've got to, the cold start. The most important thing is when you first crank that car, it needs to be dead cold. You don't want to have them, we got it out of the garage and warmed it up for you. You don't want none of that. You want that car sat overnight. You go there in the morning or whatever. It's not been driven that day. And that first cold start crank, because...
Engine, yeah?
Yeah, engine. Because on a 9, obviously that it starts.
You need to check the starter motor works.
Yeah, check the starter motor works. No, more important than that, on a 996, obviously some of the problems that we're seeing now, forget IMS and all that nonsense, what you really seriously need to check is the age and the wear of inside that engine. And I don't mean bore scoping, I'm talking about timing chain rattles, I'm talking about big end bearing noises. And most of don't mention it, don't say it.
I'm still trying to forget about that.
I've traumatised him for another night now, haven't I? Most of these cars, you'll get that initial noise from cold.
Yeah.
So now the sort of rattles you can get from cold is if all the oil's gone to the bottom and you get a top end sort of rattly sort of noise. That's not the end of the world, as long as it goes as it warms and then it goes as you rev the car up. It's not the end of the world.
You don't want it continually chucking out smoke at the exhaust.
And that's the other thing as well. The cold start is when the first burn off of smoke will come. So that first puff.
You get a little bit, can't you? And then it should die down.
Listen, we don't mind a little bit. These cars are old. We will forgive them. But if you suddenly start a car 996 from cold, particularly a 3.6, and it palms with smoke, real white oil smoke, and a lot of it, you might have a serious problem there, like bore score. You could have potentially a blocked breather, AOS failure beginning.
I had that on mine 4S.
Yeah, you had it on your 4S. So
it wasn't blowing that much smoke, actually, funny enough.
No, it was vaporising it though, wasn't it?
Burning more oil than petrol.
Yeah, so the cold start's the most important. That's the number one. It's all about, you almost want 2 people when you're doing a cold start. You want someone turning the ignition and you want someone at the back of the car. Because you want to hear those noises, all the
someone at the
cold
front,
start.
someone at the front cranking the handle.
You want to hear the cold start. You want to hear it, and then you want to see that smoke. Because if the seller's at the back and you're cranking it from the front and you don't look properly, he might be like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Yeah,
yeah, it's all right.
It's got to rug out. So you can't see anything.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So yeah, that's the biggie. That's the number one.
Just a general thing on Porsche 996 engines. So there's a variety of different engines, different ages, Gen 1s, Gen 2s. Different size engines,
different problems with different engines.
So you've got the 3.4 M96,
yeah,
is it
3.4 M96, the early cars like yours and mine, they're suffering from age-related problems. So they don't have IMS failure as a general rule. They don't have bore score as a general rule.
Mine
but what
none,
they do have, his was opened up 130,000 miles, mint bores.
Because they have they don't.
The steel
Porsche
liners.
changed from, we're using metal liners on the pistons to plastic liners, like chocolate liners.
And then they started scoring. I wonder why, John.
Why do they do things like that? You can't be saving that much money.
I guess it was a heat thing, heat dispersion or something like that. But yeah, obviously it's caused a lot of bore scoring.
Money dispersion thing.
Yeah, self-destruct.
We're losing some money.
Self-destruct engineering is what I call it. built to break. So yeah, that's but they do have age-related things. So timing chains would be an issue. Tensioners, the runners, the guides, because
hard to tell what's going on with that.
If they're chomped up, it will really rattle.
You'd have to take the oil filter off.
Well, the rattle on that as well will be consistent. So if it's rattling, as you accelerate, instead of the rattle going, it will get worse. And if the rattle gets worse with a bit of gentle revs, I mean, I don't mean revving it, I mean gentle revs, and you get that, you're stressing everything, so the chances are that chain is rattling more, or the bottom end, the big end bearing.
Chains are worn in the engines.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? I think any engine that's the original engine that's done over 100,000 miles
and age like 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, and it's an old engine. If it's done over 100,000 miles and it's never been removed from the car, you should really, if you're buying it, just say to yourself, right, the next 5 years, I probably need to rebuild that engine.
100%. If you are buying a Gen 1 996 M96, or even a Gen 2, or even a 997 now, you already have to have in your mind, has the engine been built, yes or no? If the answer is no, bear in your mind that that engine is going to need building. It can certainly justify it because of its age and mileage. All right, you might, find a real 30, 40,000 mile low mileage one. On a 997, it can still have bore score, even on that mileage. And on a 996, it's not always good for them to be low mileage. Yes, it's generally got less wear, but you don't know if it's had more start-stops than a car that's done more miles that's just been up and down a motorway.
One that's had a rebuild done on it in the last 20,000 miles or something is a real advantage, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can buy a built engine, especially if it's done by somebody that's known about, like Barn Sport, Hartech, one of these people, Google who's done it, look into them. If you can buy one that's had a built engine in the last 5 years or 20, 30,000 miles, you can pretty much safely say you have a refreshed, you good for a 50, 60, 70k miles.
Or one track day.
Or one track day. One track day. I think the writing was on the wall with yours, John, when we dropped the oil. And
the oil was on the wall.
Filthy black.
The oil was on the wall.
Got some dramas
going
on traffic-wise. I don't know, but it's queuing both directions, so it should have gone around the back of the houses. Never mind.
So, engine. Do your research on engines. Don't worry so much about IMS.
You can't check an IMS.
But it's a good idea to get them bore scored, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you could almost not get them bore scored because of you asked the question, well, it's done 100,000 miles. The engine's never been out. I'm not worried about bore score. It's going to need a rebuild because the rod bearings in the big end bearing are going to be at that age where they might go in the next 20,000 miles.
Yeah.
I don't know many. I'm sure there's some engines out there that are like in that 150 to 250,000 mile category, original engines and stuff. But I don't know of many. Do you?
No, not really. No, I mean, there are a couple. I mean, we've recently seen one that's failed at Barn Sport that had done 180,000. So that was quite impressive.
That's got original engine.
Original M96.
That's about as far as you're going to get, though.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of miles on a sports car. Bear in mind these are sports cars, high performance engines, high revving engines. Let's be honest, people don't drive them like fairies. Most of them are thrashed at some point in their life. A lot of them have been on a track at least once, even if it's just a fun thing. We get a diesel. I'm driving a V70 diesel now, and one of these with 200,000 miles. People are like, "Oh, it's barely run in," because it's that sort of industrial hardcore engine. But it
falling to bits.
It doesn't rev to 7,000
leaks oil everywhere.
It does leak oil, but only revs to 4,500 revs.
It's not normal.
Yeah, so it's not that sort of engine.
But we're Porsche. Let's stick with the Porsche. That's Porsche engines.
Yes.
Do your research on engines. Worry less about whether the IMS has been swapped. Look at the last time the engine was dropped and what was done, if it's had a rebuild. Because when the engine's out, that's the opportunity to do all the jobs, isn't it?
Yeah.
AOS, start a motor.
Bore scope in itself can be... you're putting a camera in there. It's not the same as a human eye. It does enlarge things.
I bore scoped my 4S and there was some micro scoring on cylinder 6, but Auto Technics, he said, don't worry about it, it's a good engine, that's normal, it's not bad bore scoring, you can barely see it on the camera.
Bore scoring can take a long time to fail, you know. Bore scoring can start on particularly most 3.6s and 997.3s are going to have bore scoring.
But it's worth, if you suspect, like if you go through and do your due diligence and it's done like over 100,000, the engine's never been dropped, there's quite a lot of smoke coming out of the car.
Yeah. You don't need a camera to tell you.
You still want it, then you might want to bore score it.
Yeah.
Right, so that's engines, and there's so many parts to the engines, you could talk about the engines for ages, but evidence of an engine rebuild or an engine being dropped or you know, mileage, if it's done more than 100,000, as the engine's never been dropped, that engine's going to need to be dropped, and there's going to be jobs that are going to need to be done. That's going to cost a lot of money. So number dos.
Number dos. Second most important thing I would say on a 996, particularly again on an early car, or any of them now because they're of that age, would be rust, John. They're at an age now where rust is a factor. They're not 15-year-old cars now. They're 20, 25, 27, 28 are cars. They're at that age where, you know, they can potentially be rotten really badly, or not at all. I've seen 996s that are almost completely rust-free. I've got two myself. There's nothing on those cars at all. And then there's other ones I've seen that are shocking. Yeah. You know, you're putting your jacking points that are completely corroding inside the chassis of the car. The
jack them up properly.
I've seen holes in inner chassis leg rails. So they're really hit and miss. You've got to look underneath these cars. Yeah. You've got to get
I actually think they're not too bad on that front though,
As a general rule, I'd say more are not, but I have noticed
more
particularly...
More
are not rusty.
Yeah.
Most are not rusty, or it's very light rust, like surface rust.
The arches,
Inside the arches, when the tyres are flicking the stones up, it hits the inside of that sort of...
the wheel
arch trim, you know. And it removes the paint, water hits there, it rusts, it's inevitable. But a wire brush, a bit of rust eater and a bit of...
Someone's done it with mine with black paint. But it looks fine actually.
Yeah, and it's solid there, it's very good metal there. But what I have seen more of this year, particularly on early cars, is where the aero side skirts can trap mud around the jacking points, water leaks, which we'll come back to, but where water is sitting in certain places on these cars for a long period of time, and it's rotting from the inside out. The jacking points are getting rotten from inside the floor and on the outside at the same time, and then they collapse, and it is literally a section of floor with that jacking point that needs to come out.
So always check your bodywork for corrosion and try and get under the car. Check around the window sills, because you can get, if the glass ever gets taken out, they scratch, where they cut the glass out, they'll scratch a little nick of paint and it'll be exposed and the new one goes in.
Yeah, the outside of the body's pretty good really. Like you say, the windscreen, it's mostly the inner wheel arches, the inner chassis legs, around the jacking points is the most sort of severe rust, I would say. That's the most structurally damaging rust.
And check your paint as well, isn't it? Because the paint's probably going to be hammered on a lot of them, and they get patched up paint-wise on the cheap, you know, and they get blown over.
Filled over the rust.
Yeah, or panel gets blown over or something. We've seen that on all of the ones. You know, paint never seems to be done properly on lots of cars.
No, it's just never as good as new, is it? It just, when people respray cars, very rarely does someone put enough paint on.
They all want it done on the cheapest, like as cheap as I can have it repainted.
Can you do it any cheaper, mate? Can you do it cheaper?
You always want to pay like 300 quid a panel. It's like, oh, I'll get the rear quarter done. We do it for 300 quid.
100 quid a panel, people want to pay 300 quid.
They'll do it, but they're not even going to take the seals off if you do that, and they just blow over it, and they might mask up, but it just never looks great.
There's something about factory paint still, isn't there? It's got that, if it's well looked after,
or a good full paint job where it's been done properly, that's like lovely. Because I think with a 26-year-old car or whatever, no matter how well it's been looked after, it's going to be at that stage where the clear coat's kind of at the end of its kind of life. Yeah, the paint's faded. It's, even if you really kept it mint.
What is going on traffic-wise, John?
It might benefit from a respray. So you can always consider that.
Check the nav.
So in an ideal world, you'd have one that's had a rebuilt engine, And one that's had a full respray and it doesn't have any rust.
Yeah, so basically a restored car.
Yeah, restored car.
Well, I mean, if we look at the air-cooled world, how many of these cars would you buy if they weren't fully restored?
God, the corrosion's a much bigger problem with the older ones. Though,
well, it's more age, isn't it? So yeah, they're older, and the metal.
So we've done engines, we've done corrosion and bodywork and all that sort of stuff. What's number 3 to look out for?
Well, the third most important thing would be linked to the rust is the water leaks. You know, as you've just found out. Basically, a 996 with a sunroof or convertible has water leaks.
Don't buy a sunroof or convertible. Just don't buy one with a sunroof.
Don't ask yourself, do they have water leaks? If they have a sunroof, if they're cabriolet, if they're a Boxster, they have water leaks. If they haven't had a water leak, they've never lived in the real world. They just all would have had a water leak or are currently suffering from water leaks. So lift the carpets, particularly around the back of the seats, and put your hands underneath the carpet so that your fingers and your knuckles hit the floor of the car, and then you'll feel dampness and moisture. And if it's in the passenger side, yeah, hopefully not. If it's in the passenger side rear, remember, water doesn't leak directly to that area, which means it's coming from the front and passing through. Yeah. So it could be blocked sunroof drains, cracked sunroof drains. You know, there's lots of different options of things it can be. The door seals, the memory lining on the doors. There's so many things that can cause water leaks on these cars, and of course everything is related to age. They are old. That rubber is 25, 30 years old. The plastics are old, and when they age, they get hard, they get brittle, they crack, and they deteriorate. And seals don't last forever.
Yeah.
They just don't, unfortunately.
No. So water leak is very important. But if you've got a solid top one, you know, hard top, what they call the hard top?
Non-sunroof.
Yeah. You might still get water leaks from the front, the bulkhead as well.
Yeah, the bulkhead, where the drain plugs are, fill up with, by either side of the battery tray, they fill up with leaves and mud, and they fill up the bulkhead and it leaks into the cabin.
Yeah.
So yeah, check them. Definitely. And the rears as well, the rear drain point.
The battery compartment.
Yeah, right at the back of the quarter windows. If you took the rear door card off, there's 2 little rubber bungs that come down and they clog up, and then the water just sits there and it trickles onto the rear, under your rear seat. Yeah. So if you ever get water under your rear pod, what we call the pod, the rear seat base, that's from the rear quarter window ones. Yeah. And the rear quarter windows, I've known those to leak before on a car. I think where they've been out, again, we're talking about when you've had bodywork, paintwork, they haven't put them back in properly, and they get water traps in there, and again can cause rust. Yeah.
Okay, so...
so yeah, water leaks, I'd say, as a general overall thing, is probably right in the middle of most importance.
Numero 4.
Number 4, the fourth most important thing, I suppose you then go to sort of your overall bushes, again on the rubber thing, aging of rubber, suspension bushes, top mounts.
They have complicated suspension systems on this.
Yeah, there's a lot of rubber bushes.
There's more bars down there than most cars, and it's like scaffolding.
I think you're looking at, you've got 6 arms per corner. At the rears and how many arms? Yeah, there's a lot.
6.
Yeah, because you've got a coffin arm, you've got a rear
on the back
arm,
as well. You've
got an upper arm, and then you've got the turning fork. So they're all arms, aren't they? So it's good. Is that 5 or 6? And that's each side, and then on the front. So you've got, you're talking about...
And you're best off always replacing them in sets, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Like you've got one coffin arm going, you don't just... Well, some people would just do the coffin arm, but you're best off... If that one's going, you might as well do the lot.
You know the other one's going. The thing is, again, we're coming back to the point that they can all justify being done. They are all 25 years, 30 years old.
It's a lot of weight on a lot of rubber.
Yeah, and if you're going to push that car at 100 odd mile an hour, obviously on the Autobahn, at high speeds, do you really want to be on a 25-year-old rubber bush on an aluminium part that's 25 years old.
Yeah, and all the engine mount bushes as
You
well.
can justify.
They rubber actually, or they fluid?
The engine mounts, the rear engine mounts are rubber, but they're oil filled.
Oh, right.
And again, when that rubber deteriorates, they start to sag and your exhaust pipes sit low. So that's one telltale sign. The second thing is they can split and they will fail and they will leak oil. They'll leak oil from the engine mount all over the floor, and then of course you lose your engine mount.
Yeah.
So there's no, if you're on the original engine mounts on your car, and I don't care, even if it's done 30,000 miles, change them. Change them now.
Yeah.
Just change them.
Yeah. Okay. So suspension, yeah. So know your suspension. Have an eyeball it. Well, you can't. The problem is when you look at them, they're sitting on the deck, so you can't really. You can see if it's perish, but you can't really. Check it, can you? So you've got to test drive it. And
test driving is going to tell you most of the answers on that.
Yeah.
The front top mounts are the most common on Gen 1s and Gen 2s, and you'll know when the top mounts are bad. The steering's horrible. They're very rattly.
Yeah.
They just
Crashy
feel like
when
you're
you
a
go
bit
over
marbly, like you're on marbles. They're just not nice.
Yeah.
And immediately, I mean, obviously, if you're changing to coilovers, you lose the OEM top mounts because coilovers have their own ones anyway.
I think I've got, with my Olims, I think they've got Porsche top mounts in them as well.
No, it'll be built into your Olims at the top. The top of your coilover has a top mount bracket that sits straight up onto the metal of the car, so it doesn't have.
I think that was done on my car.
Because it's not a strut. It's different.
It's all done on my suspension on my car's lovely. I've got 4 new tuning forks because they need doing, don't they? So I'll do those.
Coilovers have a much more advanced top mount.
Yeah.
Be CNC machined and proper big ball built into the whole
this is
thing.
another discussion, but like the first upgrade you want to do on a 996 is get on coilovers because it changes the car, makes it so much more planted, modern, and less floaty and
you don't
bouncy.
have to spend a fortune, a suspension. Obviously, Olins are like top of the pile, but 2,000-3,000.
Dan gets Olin envy whenever he drives my car.
Olins are mega, but they are mega money. But I'm a big fan of the yellow speed coilovers. I think they're amazing build quality,
good for the
amazing
money.
value for
grand,
money.
Don't they?
Yeah, I mean they're not even meant for track. And look at what I do in DTC. And they do get rid of half the suspension
I'm going to overlay that shot of you losing the back end and coming off the circuit and and look at what I do in DTC.
I think that's something to do with late braking, John, as opposed to suspension problems.
Well, yeah, it was. So, suspension.
Yeah, and bushes in general, rubber all over.
Yeah.
That would be the.
And the next one, number 5, is it or number 1?
I think the next one, again, I think, although we haven't touched base on sort of the paperwork side of things, I think the most important thing other than that, I'm assuming you've done all that, would be brakes and brake lines. These cars are at that age again now where all of the original brake lines are corroding on them, particularly around where they clip to the body. So on the body of a car, you'll have a plastic clip that's bolted onto the floor pan, and your brake lines sit in that. Well, also what sits in that is mud, and mud sits in there, and what does mud do? Holds water. So what you find is when you pop them out, you'll see your brake line goes from a certain fatness, gets thinner a bit, and then gets fatter again. And that's where it's actually just being eaten away by the mud that's corroding in there.
It doesn't sound good.
Yeah, your brake lines, particularly all down the passenger side of the car, and then of course the all-important up and over, which you've just done.
Yes.
Which you can't inspect without dropping the engine.
Or you did a clever camera on a stick.
Yeah, clever camera on a stick. So you have to just assume, if it's no physical paper evidence that has been done, it needs to be done. It might need to be done.
Is that engine out, is it?
That's engine out. It needs to be done. If you have no physical paper evidence to prove that 996 you're looking at has had an up and over pipe in the last 5 years, it needs one, because it means that up and over pipe is the age of that vehicle. So 21 to 27
And they corrode,
years
don't
old
they?
here. And again, they corrode in certain places, and it will fail. And it's a brake line at the end of the day. And it's a big section. You buy it directly from Porsche. It's not something you make up. You buy one and it's fitted, but you do have to remove the engine and gearbox to fit it. So you might get lucky and there might be a little leak down by the bottom and you can just do a repair there. But in the long-term game...
How can you repair that?
Well,
or cut it out? Or?
Yeah, cut a section. So on one of the bottom corners, I've done it myself on a car, where it rots on the corner and the rest of the pipe looks good, you can put a join in it there and then put in a smaller section. And then that way you don't have to drop the engine. But of course, that only resolves that problem there. You're not inspecting it all the way around. And if the problem is there, it's likely to be elsewhere. So what some people will do, like myself, you might do a repair to get through that MOT or get out of trouble for that moment, with the long-term plan that when you do the clutch or when you drop the engine, you are going to do the up and over pipe. So just build it into your spend. Know that it's got to be done, and
make a note of all of this. How much it's all going to cost you?
Yeah, because it's going to cost you a lot. Listen, you've heard the saying, when in Rome, as John's found out. When in Rome,
you're buying a
Dan's
car.
Just found this
They're
out
selling
as
a
well.
Porsche there, aren't they?
When in Rome, do as the Romans do. When you drop the engine, when you drop the engine on an old Porsche, expect fuel rail, brake lines. This is without looking inside the engine at the big end bearing. I'm just talking about clutch, flywheels, AOS, all the things that need to be done that can only be done with the engine out. Do you know what? I would actually suggest to someone, if you're going to buy one, right? So let's say you're buying a 996, it's 15 grand, it's really cheap, lovely looking car, great service history. So some of those things done we've mentioned today, but not everything. And you're buying it for 15, 16,000, it's an absolute bargain. Do yourself a favour, go to your bank account, open another account called 996 Savings, and just transfer £100 a month or so, £200 a month into that bank account, and build up a little bit of a pot. And every time you're on eBay or you see Spider's performance on Design 911, good old boys, I've got a special offer like 15% off. Just have a little scan through, get your little list and go, oh look, the AOS
if you've got 3 classic cars,
then
you've got a house, you got a pot for your holiday fund,
you still need a 996 pot, John, and trust me, you need an additional pot. And then when you see these things on special offer, Spider Performance are doing a complete arm set for $899 in the January sale, buy them and just put them in your cupboard. AOS is on special offer at Design 911, John. I can save 150 quid. It hasn't gone yet. Buy it. Put it in your little cupboard. Look, I can get a rear brake line, special offer. Just buy it and start building up a pile of parts.
You've got another car being built slowly forming. And in 5 years you'll have another Porsche 996 and you'll be 30 grand worse off.
You'll thank me for it. Start buying all these parts when they're on special offers.
The blokes are going to start doing this. They're going to end up like getting divorced because all the family money's gone into the car. And then
there's a whole wardrobe full of bits.
There'll be a picture
bedroom
of you on their dartboard. They'll be wobbling dancing it.
The wife will be standing it. No, seriously, pre-buying bits when they're on offer. I've done it loads. I always look in the January sales. I normally get a set of yellow speed coilovers from ID Works or one of those companies, or Tenga. We'll do them for around about 800-900 quid in January sales.
That price is phenomenal, isn't it?
I buy them. I don't need them, but I buy them.
He sells them on eBay.
Well, worst case scenario, someone will give you £1,000 back for them later, but I just buy them anyway, because what's the odds Danny's going to buy a car that's got knackered suspension? It's all done, all my dreams are done. I can do the top mounts, the struts, the lot in one go for 900 quid. So sometimes I buy bits like that.
Charges £3,000.
Drop links. I always buy bits. You've seen my little spares pile.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I take it to Germany.
You've got a couple of breakers in your yard as well.
Yeah, but
I've had more bits off those cars than Dan has.
I constantly have engine mounts, drop links, auxiliary belts,
those aux belts wear as well, don't they? Yeah.
As in complete suspension units, you know, shocks or top mounts. If I see them on offer, I buy that stuff anyway. I know it's a bit different because I buy and sell cars and I fix them up, and it's inevitable I'm going to do them. But what I'm telling you is, if you're going out to buy one of these cars, I'm telling you it's inevitable you're going to need everything I just mentioned. Because if it hasn't already been done, I promise you it will need doing.
Well, maybe. Mine. But the only thing that was good on mine was the suspension. That's about the rest.
Yeah, and there's lovely Olins, but the rest of it was just stuck together with blue tack and sellotape.
So at the end of the universe, those Olins will still be there, but the rest of the car have rusted away.
Dan's Timeless Classics disclaimer: I did not pre-inspect that car on purchase, and I don't think nor did John. He looked at it online and went, "Oh, it's a red one. I want a red one. I like that. I love it."
I got the plane up to Inverness. I went there.
Gave him the money.
I got the keys and I drove. There's no way I was going to walk home. I had no money to get the plane back, so I was like, this will do.
John and Nick Skipper, the ultimate car buyers. They just turn up, they transfer you the money, they get in the car and they drive off.
How dare you? Nick buys them with blown engines, hoping they might not be blown.
He's like you. You bought one that was just about nearly blown.
Well, I don't know. I think I could have done that. I could have done that to any of them. I reckon that, I don't know. Like, the big fear for me is what's going to happen over the next few years as I track this thing. But, oh shit.
Yeah, well, you've built it. You've built it like new now. You've restored it to new. The engine's new. So you're getting a bloody good crack at
it's running great. But I just think these flat six engines don't like being like winged,
I think they're alright when they're new.
The track.
I think they're alright when they're new, John. I think when they're 20, 30 years old, they don't like being ragged around the racetrack.
Well, I'm hoping that little extra, the racing sump and the little bit of extra oil, the thicker oil with the baffles. I'm hoping now.
You've gone to the right man, haven't you?
Oh yeah, Scott's done an amazing job. Like.
Scotty. Engine
and I'll tell you what, it's just running so good as well at the moment. It just runs amazing. Like, the engine feels really smooth and healthy and just good. But the amount of things they've done.
Is he stopping us? He is.
No.
Yeah, he is.
Is he?
They're closing the road.
Oh, right. Oh, he's not pulling you over, though.
No, he's slowing the traffic down both lanes. It's all right. We're more traffic issues will come off here.
What's going on here then?
I don't know. We've already M27 traffic issues, now A3 too.
What are they trying to do?
He's trying to close it off.
There's not traffic ahead problems, and he's trying to back everything up.
I'm just going to go around the back of the houses.
You'd like to think they know what they're doing, but.
Oh, the joys.
So
road trips, eh, John? We love a road trip.
Yeah. Some other things worth mentioning: check the accelerator pedals, because they're always like really worn and like wobble, and they're a pain to. They're cable throttle. They're a pain to do that upgrade on.
I did touch on it slightly, but obviously it's hugely important. Paperwork.
Yeah.
So obviously, HPI this car. You know, you're going to look at a car, the first thing you should do, I'm not sponsored by Car Vertigo, so I don't use Car Vertigo. I use Total Car Check.
I use My Car Check, and it's like £1.99.
That's pretty good. I buy them in bundles.
Used to be 99p.
But I get the top check, because some of the checks are not that good.
I get the cheap
one. And I think if you, don't do the cheap one, do the top one. Total Car Check, their top check is
about
about
if he's got finance
quid.
or it's been written off. The rest of it, I don't care.
Yeah, but it's nice to see, because with the top check, you can see how many owners it's had, but it tells you at what stage they've had
I like to look at the usage history, so when it covered its miles. Because what you don't want with a Porsche is one that's sat on its arse doing nothing for like the last 5 years.
Yeah, sitting around, not doing the miles.
You want to be used, MOT'd, evidence of paperwork in the last 3 years.
Servicing,
like
repairs,
a couple of grand a year of things being fixed because of the age. If it's not, and we've not run it for 5 years, but it's in great condition, it won't be.
No.
It needs to be run, serviced, maintained. Accelerator pedals, gear knobs always get worn out. Steering wheels can be pretty worn out. What else in the cabin? Look, check the front windscreen's not all chipped up and smashed up as well.
Yeah, because if the windscreen's chipped, I'm just changing the sat nav.
Apart from that, the interiors are good. If they've messed around with it and it's modded on the inside. Oh, the speakers, the stock speakers are like chocolate. They just rip apart. So turn the Stezza on, and if you're getting the old...
Yeah, normally them dashboard ones, isn't it?
They're torn. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
What else on the interior? Oh, indicator stalks can snap, and the modules are 400 quid for that. How do I know?
Yeah, when you turn the corner, the indicator doesn't cancel.
Yeah.
That's to do with that, and you have to do the whole thing.
But the indicator won't, when you click it on that way, it won't stay on. It'll just drop back down, but it loses the spring clip, and you have to change the binnacle. There's no reliable long-term fix for that.
They do have ECU problems as well now at this age. Again, the one under the seat, if you've had water leaks, that can cause central locking problems, alarm problems, and then failure to start problems.
And if it's got an aftermarket steering wheel, check the horn, because most people just put the aftermarket steering wheel and give up trying to get the horn working.
Who, me?
They wired it to a button, didn't they? So I'm going in here trying to turn the bloody aircon on or something.
Yeah, they are a pain in the bum, so it is something to check if it's got that.
It's not a major thing to get that sorted.
You know, the list is endless because of the age of the vehicle, but the 5 major points are obvious, the ones we've said. But the only obvious thing, like I say, is just check the paperwork. You know, history, ownership. If a car's had lots of owners and they've all jumped out of it very quickly, and there's a pattern forming there, like, oh, this guy's only owned it, I'm buying it off for 4 months, says he's lost his storage. What's his story? You know, the one Nick had. Oh yeah, I bought it and it was fine, and then it just broke down, and I haven't had a chance to check it, and the AA had just recovered it home, so it's just a sensor or a fuse or something that needs doing.
Fucking
no, it's not, because you would have checked that.
Like flames of smoke billowing out the back and like pouring out there.
5 owners in 2 years. That rings a bell to me. That's like people are giving up on the car. They're buying it and they're getting out of it very fast. They obviously didn't really love it. And why didn't they love it? Is it because that when they went for the MOT or to see their mate Darren and he put it up on a ramp, he condemned it and said to him, Jesus, this car wants about 10 grand spending on it. If I was you, I'd get out of this. 4 months later, they sold it. Someone else is doing the same, so on and so on. You see the picture. Mileage doesn't bother me. I love a high mileage car if it's got low owners. You know, I've had cars with my Targa, 120,000 mile, 1 owner car. That says something. You know, if you've got the receipts and the services to go with it, they've really used it regularly, and they've spent on it regularly as well. It's a well-maintained product.
It's about to blow up.
Yeah, and it's at the end of his life.
Right, I think we better wind this one up then, Dan, because we're running out of battery on my phone. So thank you very much for your input there. Some good stuff, and there's probably loads of stuff we missed as well, isn't there? There's loads of stuff, but that should give you some good ideas as well about what to check and what to look out for.
But don't be put off.
Don't be put off.
They're great cars, and if you get one well sorted, or you make it well sorted, they are phenomenal. They are.
I've got to say, I'm only joking. I mean, like the drive I've got on my 996 now. I'll do another video on that. The way it's set up now, the way it drives, is everything I want from a car.
They're intoxicating, aren't they?
Oh, it's amazing.
You've had your car about 5 minutes. You can't stop taking pictures of it. You're addicted to that car. Same as mine.
I'm always like that. I'm like that with the E36. I am addicted to it. But with the Porsche, I'm more addicted to the drive. Like it's so well set up. It's so like it feels. These are all cliches, but it's all stiff on the road. I'm talking about the car. The steering is really precise. The throttle response is nice. The exhaust note is amazing, and it really feels like it's well set up. And it is. Big wide tyres, grippy, and you can just really hammer around in it, and it feels amazing.
They're just such fun cars to drive, and they're the last of the analog cars, the early 996s, and they really feed you back the information on the drive. And they are, you know, I say it all the time, they're, in my opinion, the best 911s ever built. I say that for a multitude of reasons. I say it because I think they're better than the air-cooled cars to drive.
Because he sells them.
Yeah, no.
I say that for multiple reasons. I've got 3 up for sale at the moment, viewers.
I don't have any for sale at the moment. Well, I'm keeping them.
Are you?
But they drive so good.
They do.
They drive better than air-cooled cars. They're
on the right
faster
suspension.
than air-cooled cars. Yeah, you've got to set them up right. They're faster than air-cooled cars. They drive better than air-cooled cars. You could do a longer drive in them better than you can in an air-cooled car, like Scotland and back. They're relatively affordable, very affordable.
Didn't Nick take one to Geneva?
Yeah, compared to air-cooled cars and compared to modern ones, they're very affordable. But the modern ones are like really luxurious and really nice, and like on the roads and stuff, they're really like, you know, as soon as you get into 997 onwards, you do feel like you're in a more prestigious car.
Yeah.
And they're very comfortable and stuff.
They're all bloody great though, aren't they? So whatever, if you end up in a Porsche, you're laughing. They're all good.
They just don't feed you back the information a 996 does. Right, the air-cooled cars, you get in them and you hear everything, you feel everything. They're so engaging. The 996 gives you all of that, but then it gives you the performance and the comfort and the speed and the handling of the modern cars. It's, you know, that's why I think it's the best.
I don't think the chassis is quite as good as like a 991.
Well, I don't know. I would differ. I think you say not as good. Not as good for what? Lap times?
No, the engine. Like the way the engine, like you can hang these cars out and you won't get them back.
I don't know. I don't know.
Especially in the wet, they're pretty lethal.
Because it hasn't got the safety aids.
Yeah.
You get that.
But I like it. Don't get me wrong.
Do you want the safety aids?
Not really. No.
I want to be on the limit. I want to.
Don't get me wrong. I love it.
I want to be excited.
I love it. Yeah. But
on the edge of
they
danger.
might not be for everyone because, you know, they are a lot of work. Some people want to buy a Porsche that's just trouble-free, problem-free, ready to go.
They're not for you.
And you go and get a 991 or a 992. You're going to be okay for like the next 5-10 years, aren't you? Unless you track it.
I don't know. I'm hearing some horror stories on these modern cars that doesn't excite me.
The Porsche engines are problematic.
Not just engines, just things, just modern cars. I think Porsche are just as bad as everybody else.
You don't get this
modern cars seem to be design failure.
I could turn my E36 on. I could put my cold engine, nothing. I could turn it on and I could put my foot to the floor of the accelerator and just redline it. Keep my foot there, redlining it, and it will still be like at the rev line, bouncing off the limiter for the next half an hour until it runs out of petrol.
I think we can all agree they don't make them like they used to, and the older cars were built like with passion and like, I mean, no coincidence that car's the same designer as the 996, and it's of that era. I think the car manufacturers just really went to town to build the best car, and they've done really well, but just the cars we're talking about now have become of age that they kind of just need restoring, they need rebuilding. So just bear that in mind. If you want to buy a car and drive it trouble-free and you don't want to have to put loads of money into it, a 996 is not for you. You've got to love it, fall in love with it.
You said to me ages ago, didn't you? When you buy one of these, say you buy one for 20 grand, put aside 20 grand in the bank. You buy one for 15 grand, put aside 25 grand.
Yeah, just double the price, you see it for sale. Just look at the maths and see it's 20, go 40. See 30, 60. See 10, it's 20.
Well, no, if you pay 30 for it though, you shouldn't have to pay more.
Maybe there's some science in there.
Pay more for one that's had a full rebuild.
Yeah, if you can.
For one that's been, the bodywork's been restored and it's all been repainted and it's been undersealed and all that. Pay for one that's just had a suspension overhaul or an underneath haul and it's mint. Pay 30 grand for that one. But if you don't, if you pay under 20 grand, then put aside the rest to have the paintwork done, to have the engine dropped out and rebuilt.
Which would be more than that what it would cost you to buy the better one in the first place.
In fact, just go and buy a BMW. Okay, we'll end it there, guys. Thanks, Dan, for all that insight. It's really useful. And take care, and don't forget to subscribe and follow Dan on Dan's Timeless Classics as well.
Or Dan's Timeless Classics 1 on Instagram and 2 on Instagram, Dan's Timeless Classics everywhere else.
I'm never going to remember that. No. I'll put it in the description. Okie dokie. Adios.
Bye-bye. It's probably about an hour.